Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Pinball Arcade. So today we're doing Jack's Open, which is a 1977 game. This is the first one of the pinball tables, as we are going through them chronologically, that has a focus on actual gambling mechanics or card games, I guess. One assumes that if you're going to put cards in a pinball, people are going to assume that it's gambling. There's plenty of other non gambling card games out there. Um, I suppose the pool table game Hot Shot would have also somewhat inspired that. Gambling on billiards and pool is totally doable. Jack's Open was created by two Pinball Expo Hall of Fame inductees, Ed Krinsky and Gordon Morrison. It is probably worth mentioning that there probably aren't too many Pinball Expo Hall of Fame inductees happening these days. I could probably name, well, I can't name anybody, but if I were to get a list of everybody that built a pinball table in the last decade, it probably would be a very short list of less than a dozen people as far as people who designed it and such. Um, this game is from the master maker of playing card games. Um, challenges this game from the master maker of playing card games challenges the players to build card hands by completing specific spot target combinations. Open with a pair to be challenged to complete a three of a kind, then a full house, then a royal flush. Light specials. So apparently nothing here for straights or straight flushes or just a standard flush. They're skipping over quite a few hands there. 2,975 units were produced of this table, so this is a higher so far on the scale as far as the number of units made. Looks like we've got a nice upper play field here. Let's go ahead and just explore the table a little bit. You've got your out lanes and your in lanes with what looks like still an easy way for the ball to go up the in lane and then drain out the out lane, which was like the previous table, and I do not enjoy that, frankly. I'm glad that they eventually got away from that. This one at least does have a peg, so it is more when something hits the out lane, maybe it would bounce into the in lane. Of course, eventually they just introduced the kickbacks. This one also has the lanes here below the flippers. That might very well be designed to stop people from being able to nudge the ball when it is about to drain all the way back up into play. That might be it. A lot of his artworks looks like a standard Hoyle card deck and just standard cards. So yeah, you have two jacks, three queens, and two kings, and then a royal flush, which goes to show, wow, that is quite the angle there, that they are not really going to give you all the cards. It would be fairly difficult to have every single card in a 52 card deck represented in some way. That would be kind of crazy. Digitally, you could do that. You have, instead of an A, B, and C at the top, you have each of the suits. You have your standard three bumpers, but the bumpers are kind of at an odd angle. So it's going to be really tight shots to either hit this lane and swing back up to this area, or hit this lane and swing back to that area, or get a shot that hits the wall and either falls the wall and loops back up, or falls the wall, hits the wall and bounces back in. This almost feels like you could do a full loop here, which is what you see in more modern pinball tables, is that you'll have just entire loops designed to go around, but that actually wouldn't work here. You just wouldn't really get an angle there. So we still are kind of in the simplistic level. What does that say? We can't zoom. I cannot read that. I think that just says Gottlieb and the copyright. And it seems like you have kind of like Marvel superhero comics being represented as card characters, and or just people, animated people of some sort representing cards, and there's a queen. This is another one of these tables that only goes up to 99,990. There's not seemingly anything particularly special about these backboards too. It's a little questionable why they even bothered to make the backboards this big originally, since there was so little happening there, just lights. It probably was a limitation on the whatever light bulbs were in the back. If they were like fluorescent tubes and that was the smallest shape of a fluorescent tube, or if it just flowed consistently. I'd be very interested to see what the actual determination was to get the specific dimensions of a pool table. If I recall correctly, I think the early ones were fairly varied, but eventually it did get down to a certain standard size. But the size of pool tables are fairly huge too, so it's not like even if you set them up right, they might be about the same height as a floor standing lamp, and so maybe that's about the same size. That would be kind of a standard way to ship things, but I bet that's not the case either. I imagine original pinball tables were being shipped on the back of trucks or trains, and there was no custom, no standard like shape or packaging or anything. So we want to complete the spade rollover, which we don't know what that really is. Score 1K in the middle, from the middle lane. Complete Jack's pair. That seems like that would be fairly easy. Score 20,000 points in one ball. Score 80,000 points overall. And then let's see what the flyer looks like. Zoom in quite a bit here. What's funny is it says Gottlieb's Jacks Open from the master maker of playing card games. So either that makes me think that Gottlieb at some point did make playing card games before Hoyle, which would be the company I would recognize as the master of playing card games. That would kind of make sense if somebody was already in the card game and the entertainment cardboard business, that they might move into more technological things like pinball. Nintendo is notorious for having made Hanafuda cards hundreds of years before they made the Nintendo Entertainment System, and they did make arcade games before they made the NES too, and they actually had like light gun games that they converted bowling alleys into like little amusement park type events, type devices. They did that in Japan, at least. I don't know if they ever did that in the West. I don't think they did. Game setup still is pretty much the same. How many instructions? 78. So yeah, even by the instruction count, we know that this is a fairly simplistic table. Like, I just got one achievement by just getting lucky. So what I'd want to see here is what, if anything, resets per run. It may not be that much that actually does reset. See, I just got 20,000 in one ball. There, I got a pair of jacks. There. I got something else. There, I just got another achievement, so I think I got all of the standard things in one play. Yeah. So I guess the wizard goals here would probably be something along the lines of getting 160,000 and just accomplishing as much as possible. Otherwise, see, I got an achievement for getting a high score. I got an achievement, I think, for getting all the standard goals. This is definitely the problem with such a simplistic pinball game is that you could put one quarter in and just be done. See, they want me to score 199,990, which is more than the meter will even read. Complete a lit outline, and score a special. Specials are probably the only thing I wouldn't immediately know. Oh, just knock all the drop down targets down. It is interesting that this is the evolution of pinball, is that you just can't really have pinball stay at the level that it once was, because it was so simplistic that people would bore very quickly with it, and you've got to get your money back. Like, pinball tables cost somewhere around $4,000 minimum new, even now, for private collectors. They're even more expensive if you actually plan on like making money back on that. So you at least originally needed people to really, you needed people to really, this should get me a special. Well, yeah, you originally needed people to really want to play these and get your money back. Nowadays, and for a lot of time, just having a pinball was enough to take up some floor space and make you and usually you wouldn't have anything else there to compete in that space anyways. Right, and see, with that I got like 140,000, and see, the only thing I didn't get to score was a special in 199,000. This is super easy. And that's not to say that there isn't room for a super easy. This one did have a nope, that was a ball. For a second there I thought it was gonna return the ball to me and forgive that quick drain, but no, it didn't. We're still not at that point. We've still yet to see a center peg middle drain either. I thought I would have gotten special if I had knocked down all of the I thought I would have gotten the special if I had knocked down all of the drop targets, and even in the process of collecting like a full house or something, but it doesn't seem like that was the case. I'm getting all the top rollovers, Seems definitely doable. Definitely does feel like there should just be something more in the middle table. This is where, if you have nothing better, putting a spinning disc in the middle of the table might be worth considering. Although that gimmick gets tiring and it adds a level of randomness that isn't particularly well appreciated by people who want to actually practice skill shots. There definitely are some tables out there that that are far too random for the likes of most pro pinball players. You could have an under the table play field around this, or just more in general. Probably would want us to break the middle lane, because particularly in this table, the middle lane is just bouncing the ball directly back to the drain. We're getting a very mechanical sound effect when we reload the drop targets. Still not getting music. Still not getting like anything to spice some things up. It could certainly have probably been appreciated if there was an option to do some room noise or chatter or even a crowd going ooh and ah when you score high while playing. Like, I wouldn't always want that on, but I certainly could see the idea of spicing it up and not making it feel like you're just playing pinball in an empty room. And from the looks of the wooden walls and the wooden floors of this room that it's depicting, you would expect it to be fairly echoey too. Seems like they kind of intentionally set this up too so that it would be fairly difficult to get a full run of the card you're looking for. Ace, queen, king, jack, queen, king, jack, queen, 10. And because there's only a red 10 there, they're not even mentioning what suits. So the only way you can get the straight flush is to get that 10 on the far right. The red 10. Although it seems like if you get these top out lanes, it just jumps you forward anyways. So, there is clearly a way to get the top out lanes, the top lanes, not out lanes, but lock those in, and then get a lot of progress really fast because of that. It might be safer to stay at the top and just get the 4 suits locked in anyways, because then you won't drain out on random movements like is happening a lot here. See, that was a particularly bad game, but I've had 4 or 5 great games nearly accomplishing the wizard score without even really trying. Like, it really should not be this easy. And once again, I'm just terrible at nudging. I've never played pinballs where I really nudged. So if I was actually good at nudging, I'd probably be twice as good at pinball. But yeah, by the time I even think about it, the ball has long since moved away. Maybe if I played more actual physical pinball, I would be a little bit better at nudging. You are getting points every time you hit the back part of the drop targets. But they're not lit up special points or anything like that. And seemingly there's nothing that you actually get for knocking all the targets down prematurely when you don't need to, other than it just gives you the standard points you would get for that. I'm not really sure what lights up the bumpers. In a lot of scenarios, lighting up the bumpers for a higher score happens so passively that you just won't ever really figure out what the thing was you did to do it, and it won't really matter, because hitting a bumper and getting 100 points versus getting 1,000 points often it's not even recognizable. Maybe I'm losing a little bit of momentum here. Maybe I'm losing some beginner's luck. The real target here would be to just actually aim instead of randomly trying to keep the ball up, and actually just try and hit the actual things you're looking for, and moving forward and cycling through it probably is a faster, safer way of getting higher points. Because if you were to say there's a just random percentage chance, if this game was not a game of skill, which it is, if you were just saying that there's a random percentage chance of every time you hit the ball, it's going to eventually drain out because of that hit, then randomly just flinging the ball back into the playfield is not desirable. Having skilled aimed shots is more desirable. Of course, that takes a little bit more focus, and it does potentially create a scenario where you hesitate and drain the ball instead of just keeping it in play. But particularly those center targets, that's where I would have liked to see it have a loop. If there was a center peg in the middle there and a loop that would shoot the ball to the left or right into the upper play field, that would have been nice. I've seen definitely on some other tables too where they have put a center lane that makes it fairly easy for you to hit the bumper, and because of that you bounce right back to where you were. Darn it. And so yeah, you don't want a center lane that also brings you to the bumper area. Okay. So I'd have to get the queen, the king, and the jack of all red, or get to the upper area, and line up all the upper lane. Just hit that king and I'll have the royal flush. And now the special's lit, which I don't know what the special is, per se. If you're supposed to just try and hit everything, or what. Like, there isn't a hand of poker higher than a royal flush, normally speaking. Seriously? Yeah, I'm gonna drain out before I can get there. And yeah, it still didn't get high enough. But I feel like the special in that case would have gotten us higher. That being said, I made more points in previous games simply just focusing on keeping the ball in play. So let's switch back to that instead. Most of my playstyle is pretty random and luck more than skill. So it'd be interesting to see somebody play these pinball tables if they've never played pinball before and see if they can do as well as I have or better. Like, I'd like to think that I was actually good at pinball, but I don't honestly believe that to be the case. Probably better than someone who's never played it, but I also know I'm definitely not as good as several other people I've seen play pinball. Real experts, people that spent a lot more of their lifetime exposed to it. Poor kids today would probably not even have any interest in playing pinball and would do terrible even if they tried. See, just gotta get that 10. Alright, so we've got the special now. And it seems like when the special popped up, it only popped up the red cards that time. So there might be something to that. One of the things I mess up with, and I know I'm not really good about, is the actual flick of the flipper. Like, you don't want to just hold it, and that's very often what I do. Is I'll hold the flipper, and you just want to flick it. That way it's back lower, and it has a higher chance of potentially bouncing the ball back into play if you're not prepared. The angle changes ever so slightly when you have the flippers up. Darn it. And so when you're at the fourth ball and you're only at 70,000, then you kind of know you're not long for the world as far as actually accomplishing your goals. Yep, I kind of don't want to stop playing, but I would say this probably is not the first table I'll get all the wizard goals done with. There's just too much of a chance. There we go, I actually successfully used a nudge, and it didn't really even help that much. There's too much of a chance in this table to just have the ball immediately drain out. And that's where the need for extra QA, quality assurance and testing, needs to happen on tables, and they got better at doing that later on. They would have adjusted angles or put even tilts on the road, on the floor, so it would not likely or lower the chance or in the odds of the ball going down a certain way. I imagine you could probably even run a like simulation program these days to directly figure out how often a ball would aim towards the out lanes and drain to the end of the game, and you could make adjustments through some kind of 3D computer assisted design software to make sure your pinball table is as angularly designed as possible, so that you can make little adjustments. Pretty much anything, if the ball is moving straight down the line in that yellow square, you kind of know it's going to drain towards the center. Whereas if it's moving in a non-parallel way, then you will probably hit the flippers. And they never really designed anything where if you just accidentally flip the ball upwards, it would stop it from falling back down the middle. I don't know what you really could do with that. They never really experimented with the idea of not having a center drain at all, because then the game would never end, potentially. You don't want a pinball table where the pinball can just sit flat and not move, because then somebody will walk away from the pinball table and it won't go back to the attract mode or charge for people to continue to play. Of course, nowadays you could easily make a game that was just in free play mode and gave you an infinite number of balls. It just wouldn't matter. Okay, well, I could keep doing this for sure. Let's see. What did you need to do to earn a special on Jack's Open? Complete the standing drop targets when the special is lit. So maybe it's a randomized standing drop targets. To light special, complete the 4 card hands indicated here by shooting the indicated drop targets or completing upper rollovers. See the card hand chapter for more detail. Once special's been lit, complete the 5 red drop targets to score the special. So it is just a royal flush again, with the red cards. And as far as scoring, it's just going to give you like all of the instructions, apparently. Yeah, all 78 pages of the instructions. Let's play one more game, but I've lost momentum. I've lost that beginner's luck, so I'm not expecting that I'll be able to get to 199,000. Or ironically, I might be able to get up to 199,990 and then drop the ball on lighting the special. These definitely do feel like goals, though, I could do. The only problem is, since the games let you buy more tables, and in buying more tables it lets you buy more achievements, I'd have to do an evaluation on how many of the tables I could get all the wizard goals on, and whether it would be really worth the effort to try to get 100% achievements completion on Pinball Arcade, which would then be undone, and I assume Steam would stop highlighting it at that point as soon as I bought new tables. Not that there's that many new tables to even concern yourself with. It's kind of a disappointment, actually, how few tables there are new. It would have been a lot nicer if I'd opened up this 3 years later and seen that there was hundreds of new tables to buy, and that my collection was pathetic in comparison. Or at the very least that it had kind of doubled. But on the other hand, they kind of have all the classics. I don't think I'm going to be able to really name too many tables I'd like to see that I don't think I've already seen. I'm not that familiar with... man, I just don't want to stop. I'm not really that familiar with that many tables, but the Mario pinball, which honestly I don't think is particularly even a good pinball table. I'd like to see that, but that would certainly be licensing something for Nintendo and then putting it on other consoles and PC, which Nintendo has never allowed that. Even in some of the Lego games where there was some Nintendo content tied in, the version on Steam changes that content and takes it out. Or particularly one Lego game I know of. There probably are some licensed products that if I thought really hard may have had a table. There probably is like a Metallica pinball table out there, or any number of like rock and roll bands listed pinball tables out there. But I could see it being kind of impossible to license those. Particularly a lot of bands now have members who have died or they've broken up. So it would be hard. For a second there I thought the ball was going to be stuck. That would be our first stuck ball. That itself should be an achievement overall, but it isn't. I've got to stop playing this table though. I need to move over to the next table. I'm hardly burning the midnight oil, as it were, covering these. I make a 30-minute episode and then I take an hour-long break. Or I make maybe 2 30-minute episodes and take an hour-long break after it. Ball is getting stuck more and more. Ball 1 is 40,000 with 5 balls that could do it. The 2 upper lanes are the ones on the middle, so that's seemingly doable too. Man, if it would just quit draining. But so yeah, even playing with 5 balls, if you're gonna have a table where it is fairly easy to just lose, and you're not gonna have any protection there as far as a kickbacks or a ball saver function, then yeah, you are gonna have bursts of success followed by a lot of bursts of failure. Not really as gambly as I thought it would be. And what would be really funny is if we go and look at Wildcard next, and it turns out that Wildcard is just a reskin of Jack's Open. If that was the case, then why not have reskins for Eldorado and Big Shot, which we know also had reskins. So far, each of these tables has been very different, and it 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 seems like the play fields have all been custom made. Now, it would be fairly easy to ship play fields for a pinball cabinet and change out the play field and the circuitry inside without actually changing the rest of it, although it's probably not worth the effort, uh, particularly when you're talking 1960s, 1970s era pinball tables. There would have just been a rat's nest of wires, and even when you're talking like 90s era play pinball uh, cabinets, they would be rat's nests of wires. Only, I imagine, fairly recently would we have started to see anything in the line of serial connections between components. By that I mean you could plug something in that would be probably something close to an IC squared or connection, which is kind of a maker version of USB, sorta. Just think of it like USB, and then you'd be able to plug that into like a daughter board, which would be a smaller circuit board that would handle a bunch of the lights in a certain area, whereas pinball tables up until this point would have just a positive electricity, negative neutral electrical wire, and all of that would tie into some kind of controller board, and all of that would probably then have to tie to a big power supply, and it'd just be wires all over the place. There is basically no wasted space at all in the underplay field, the underside of a play field in a pinball machine. And I wouldn't be surprised actually if they still aren't using serial connections to send and transmit data. Whereas by modern standards, if you were to get an LED strip, there are LED strips called individually addressable LEDs that you could get where everything is just built together and you can send a code to adjust the brightness or the color of each individual LED. Although I've heard some of those can be fairly slow in a pinball field, though it probably wouldn't matter that much. But I don't know if newer technology would actually reduce the cost of building a pinball table, because the flippers and the bumpers and all of that are kind of custom things. You don't use pinball flippers for anything else. You don't use bumpers or drop down targets for anything else. And there isn't enough demand to have much of an economy of scale there. So while you could save a few dollars on the LEDs and the wiring on the underside and have a more over-the-counter computer just run the whole thing instead of having to have a custom circuit board, which is what would have been in the 80s and 90s the case, that's about the only savings you'd have. You could maybe print in plastic instead of using wood the outer parts of a pinball cabinet to save some weight, thus save shipping, thus save money. If you made it kind of like a plastic shopping cart type material for the walls, you could use plastic instead of glass for the top and the backboard, and that probably would work. Or you could at least use like stronger glass that wouldn't shatter. Not that pinball tables tended to shatter that often anyways. It was fairly thick glass, unless somebody hit it, which I'm sure happened quite a few times. But yeah, you could 3D print all the toys and all the custom bumpers and things. You could 3D print a lot of that and save yourself a little bit in production that way. But a individual person couldn't 3D print a whole pinball. You could get just components, and you still would have to have a lot of know-how and a lot of core elements. Even getting pinballs is probably fairly difficult, and those would just be big ball bearings of a certain size. So yeah, the pinball has not gotten cheaper. There's no way that making a smaller, flatter, you could certainly make it more compact in the height of the playfield, but I don't see how that would feel right. And having more space under a pinball table is kind of pointless. If anything, they probably should have built the pinball tables so that they didn't have space at the bottom of them, or that there was some form of, I don't know, ticket dispenser or cabinet under pinball tables to use that space more wisely. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wish list. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.